Let's move on to Amu TV. Samiullah Mahdi, you are a former Voice of America correspondent. You've co-founded this television station. Can you tell us what it does? And are you free to broadcast or at least stream what you want into Afghanistan?
Thank you so much, Deborah. It's very nice to be in this panel. I hope you're hearing my voice. Okay.
Yep, we do.
So yeah, I used to work for Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, which is similar to Voice of America, but not Voice of America. I was their bureau chief in Afghanistan for 2 years, and just before the collapse of Kabul, I left the company. And it's interesting that Zahra Jan was working on the question, if the Taliban take over, what will happen to women? At the same time, I was working on the very similar question, if the Taliban take over, what will happen to media? And this was for a project for Harvard University, Kennedy School, Shorenstein Center. And my research was published only after collapse of Kabul. And what's happening today on media and for journalists in Afghanistan, I think a lot of it was predicted in that research, but I have to admit that the situation is much worse than what I had predicted in that research paper. Because in that research paper, my assumption was that the Kabul government will not collapse fully, and Taliban will become, the bigger brother in that government, but we will still have, we will still keep some infrastructures of the state, which unfortunately that didn't happen, and we witnessed the full collapse of the entire state and government and all institutions. It's I will come to your question, but before that, I should mention that it's still heartwarming to see that while every institution of the government has collapsed, the national army, the national police, the government itself, the parliament, everything, but media is still standing. We still have media in Afghanistan. And that's an answer to the questions if, if the media is a real achievement of the country. You can just see and, go back to Afghanistan and see that media is still standing. Unfortunately, under severe censorship, under unimaginable censorship, which we didn't experience since the Taliban government from 1996 to 2002. So we are going back to Taliban 1.0, unfortunately. Coming back to your question about Amu TV, just after the collapse of Kabul, I and one of my very close friends and colleague, Lutfullah Najibizadeh, who was the head of Tola News before the collapse, both of us at the end of August 2021, we met in Istanbul, and we discussed the idea of building a new media outlet, because we already knew that we cannot work with domestic media anymore because they're going to be under Taliban's control anyway, and it's impossible to do the kind of journalism that we used to do in Afghanistan. So we started working on that, and then we both came to the United States. I got a work visa from ICFJ, the International Center for Journalists, and Lutfullah got a fellowship at the Chicago University. We got this opportunity to be in the US and work on the idea. Now we are established news channel, TV channel in Virginia, Sterling, Virginia. And we are covering all aspects of life in Afghanistan. We cover human rights, we cover women's rights, and we cover security, politics, and also day-to-day life of the ordinary people across the country. our focus is, of course, on human rights and women's rights and security and, the regional politics and security across Afghanistan and around Afghanistan. But also, we are not so much, Taliban-centric, because we feel like there is a 40 million people population that we have to cover, and they are still alive, they are living there, and they're, of course, severe conditions, but still the life is going on there. We have a small crew here in Washington, D.C., in Virginia, but the majority of our colleagues are in Afghanistan. We have about 24 reporters and editors inside the country. Unfortunately, they operate anonymously without being able to, introduce themselves as the correspondents and reporters of Amu TV. But the fact that we have this level of access inside the country, enables us to produce some very, very important and sometimes very sad reports from the country. For example, a week ago, we unveiled, a report from Panjshir province where the Taliban had, entered the house and raped an entire family, a woman and her 4 daughters. The Taliban denied, of course, at the beginning. Then, this sound clip of one of the Taliban authorities from Panjshir, was surfaced, and he said that at least the mother was raped by the Taliban. We had a similar report from Kabul, where 2 girls were raped unfortunately, by the Taliban in the western parts of the city in Dashti-Barchi. And that's becoming kind of, we can see a trend, unfortunately, in this kind of unfortunate incidents in some areas of Kabul, especially in the west parts of the city. And, reports of, civilians being killed by the Taliban from Panjshir, from Kabul, from Kandahar, from Nangarhar, from Andarab, and different parts of the country. So that's the kind of work we do. We are present on all platforms online. We established the online presence at the beginning of August. The last time I checked, we had reached 30 million audiences across our platforms, and we are expecting to launch our satellite broadcast in 2 months. Thank you.
Congratulations.